Hello all. So there's not a real theme today, so to speak. I just have some books I want to chat about. So the first book I want to chat about real quick is one that I actually finished last week, and that is Aurora Rising, the new team up series with Amy Kauffman and Kristoff, who wrote the Illuminae files. Illuminae. As we've learned, I don't know how to speak words, which can be a problem. So this is a much anticipated series from them because that series was so popular and did such interesting things with book form and made the physical copy so much more interesting than the digital copy. So this is very interesting. It feels like it explores a lot of similar things to their first series. Its form isn't quite as experimental or cutting edge, but that is not, necessarily a detriment. I really liked the cast of characters and kind of squad when I started. When I started, I was like, oh, this is like Six of Crows in space. It did get a little bogged down by it, I think. I don't know that each character really was fully developed. The banter, I never thought I would ever say this, but the banter did become a little old at times because I didn't feel like we were progressing as well. And then each character was so sarcastic that their voices didn't really always stand apart from each other. And the ending was interesting. I think that's where it explores a lot of the same things as the first series. I don't know that it worked for me, but that is highly subjective. I definitely think it's worth a read. I will definitely be continuing with the series, but it was different than I expected. That is all. I read Saeed Jones's memoir, How We Fight for Our Lives, in a digital advanced read copy. I am not going to talk about that a whole bunch because I'm going to be going to the book event in Chicago October 12th. I'm making up a date. I'll look at I just wrote it down on my calendar. Let me consult. I will be going to that, so I'll be talking about it a little bit more, but know that you definitely should read that book. It's heart-wrenching, it's gorgeous. Every word is expertly utilized. I think his poetry background is very evident in that. So, October 16th. The 12th is completely wrong. Anyway, so that definitely is a book that you should pick up, especially if you like memoir. It was just utterly heart-wrenching. And then I made the poor choice of not having read my book club book before. So my book club book this week was An Untamed State by Roxane, which I have had for years and years. I think I picked up the digital copy when it was on sale at one point, and I just knew the subject matter was super heavy, and I just never was feeling like I was in a space where that's where I wanted to sit or what I wanted to sit with. And then I went to the book tour for Difficult Women, which came out the same year as Hunger, just in the spring. And I bought a physical copy so I could get it signed, and then it continued to sit on my bookshelf. So last month, one of my book clubs one of the members was like, hey, I just bought this book. I'd love to read it for book club. I was like, yes. I need an excuse to take this off my shelf and finally read it because I need to. And I read it right after How We Fight for Our Lives, which is super gorgeous but super heavy. And I knew I'd be going right into something else that's super gorgeous and super heavy. This is about a woman who was kidnapped. It's heavy, guys. It's really heavy. But it is gorgeous. It is evident, and we talked about this a little bit in my book club, that it is her first, real work. We can see kind of like her starts here. It feels a little bit more heavy-handed, I think, than some of her other stuff. And I didn't know that I wanted to sit with a woman being brutalized and tortured and put through something of this nature for so long, I trusted Roxane Gay, so I went there, and I think she explores it in a very interesting way. She does a lot of, you know, she releases the tension. She doesn't make us sit in that awfulness constantly. So the structure is mixed up so that, you know, we're seeing our protagonist's relationship with her husband and her family, and we're seeing it cutaways. So, but we still see a lot of really awful stuff. So if you, all of the trigger warnings on this book, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It is very good. If you're a Roxane Gay completist, definitely check it out. I think this and her, I'm saying a lot again tonight, I'm so sorry. This and Not That Bad are what I've left from her. Not That Bad was another one that I just didn't know that I wanted to sit with for that long. So this was great. I'm glad I finally got it read. I'm gonna take this Writers Museum bookmark out of that because I want that. Oh, so yeah, last weekend was the Smithsonian Day magazine, like museum day. So there were a bunch of museums across the country that partnered and offered free admission as long as you reserved. And I went to the American Writers Museum downtown in Chicago because I've been meaning to go since it opened like years ago and just had never gotten around to it. And so I finally went. It was great. It is very small, but the admission is only like $12 normally. So it's, I think, well worth the ticket price. The design is gorgeous. There's a lot of interaction outside. So like the first room gives you a timeline of American authors. It does peter out a little bit toward the end. I was very upset not to see Toni Morrison. They may have also just been editing her since she passed recently. So they give you a timeline of American authors, and they don't just focus, you know, on novelists or nonfiction. They give it a good swath. That's not the word I want, but it's the word I'm going to use. And then they also have a timeline at the top that positions these thinkers and writers in American history. So you can kind of see that. There's a wall behind it that has where you can flip. Everything feels very interactive. It is very interesting to me from someone who has a history and is rooted in dramaturgy with the theater. So that that kind of interaction, those pair, very interesting. There's a lot of interaction in like the second part of the museum where it's a little bit more about wordplay and how things are constructed. I didn't dive as deep into that portion of the museum, so to speak, because I was more interested in the history, I guess. There is currently an exhibit for Bob Dylan, which is seemingly very popular. It's been extended. That's not my wheelhouse, but it looks gorgeous, and I walked through it, and its presentation is very appealing. They also have a Tools of the Trade exhibit where they have been loaned typewriters from various estates or authors or museums or what have you that were used by famous authors, and it's really cool to see the typewriters. They also have typewriters you can play on. I didn't that day just because there were so many people, but it's a really cool museum, and if you're in Chicago, it's just right past the park on Michigan. It's like the second story of a building. It's very accessible. It's great. I really enjoyed it. So I don't remember how I got there, but and the Saeed Jones event that I go to will be there as well. So the next thing, so next week for book club, my other book club, we're reading Things We Lost in the Fire by Mariana Enriquez. And I haven't reread this yet. I'm going to reread it this week for book club. Did kind of skim through it recently when I was writing a blog post that I was including this with, because this is one of my favorite short story collections of recent years. I will definitely be rereading this week because I love it so much. She is an Argentinian author, so this is a translation. It's a gorgeous translation. She is compared to Shirley Jackson, which is completely my jam. It's political, it's spooky, it's weird. I adore this collection. So I guess I'm just here to just talk this up again because God, I love it. Okay, what I'm working on right now is Wayward Son by Rainbow Rowell. The sequel to Carry On. I got this just yesterday because I had it pre-ordered and it took till yesterday to arrive. I have this much left, so around 100 pages or less, I believe, maybe a little over. It reads very quickly, so I will finish it soon. I have been avoiding spoilers like crazy, but I did see somewhere I'm hopeful that we may get more after this even. It does pick up in a much different place than you would anticipate, because you kind of expected the happily ever after. If you don't know what I'm talking about with Carry On, it's a, I don't want to say like a Harry Potter-esque, but that's kind of what it was rooted in, right? So because it came from Fangirl, where it's that fan fiction. This is the series that takes place within that world, but is not of the canon that exists in Fangirl. So this follows Baz and Simon and Penelope and Agatha as they kind of figure out what's next, and that the happily ever after is a little harder one than you would think. I think it's very interesting that it takes a look, especially with Simon. Simon's battling some extreme depression and presumably PTSD after these events, and it's good to see that these heroes are kind of having to work through these emotions. It does stink because you want them to be living happily ever after now, right? You want them to be okay. I think that Rainbow Rowell is handling it in a very good way. I will say this, when I first started, I saw that there was a chapter from Agatha's perspective, and I was like, I don't really care about Agatha, if I'm being completely honest. But this book has changed that for me. Gosh, I love her chapters so far. They're so good. Her side is very interesting. I also think that throwing in her perspective is smart. And this girl who doesn't want to be involved in this life or death, that, you know, is kind of just on the sideline. She talks about, you know, already having dated the chosen one and all that responsibility and the responsibility we put on these women and whatnot. So I even rereading Carry On, I was not interested in Agatha as much. I listened to it ahead of this release, but this is doing justice to Agatha for me. I'm very excited to finish it. It's just like a big warm hug, especially after having read two heavier books, and this definitely explores some heavier themes, but it's just lighter hearted, and there are vampires and magic, and it just feels more fun, safe. I don't know what the sentiment is I'm looking for there, but that's where I am. So the last book I just want to mention is one that I have not read yet, but I just came back from a book event for, and that is Jonathan Van Ness's Over the Top. So we've seen some news about it this week with him revealing his HIV positive status and whatnot. I'm very excited to read this book. So I saw him speak as part of Chicago Ideas Week. We didn't get to meet him. We saw him speak. We got a copy of the book, which is signed, but it was pre-signed, so there was no signing line, which, to be honest, the theater was packed. The signing line would have been ridiculous because people would have been trying to have full conversations, which I totally understand, but I just don't know that there's a way to make that work. So it was a great talk. He was very candid and open and vulnerable, and so the things he was talking about and the things he alluded to talking about in this book, I don't know how you get to a place of that vulnerability. And I think I would say the same for Saeed Jones's book. I said I wasn't going to talk about this book, but I am apparently. There is an intense emotional vulnerability. There is an intense trust, I guess. I don't know that that's the right word. I hope it was cathartic for them to write. It, as a reader, is an intense trust. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know that I have thought out the words to explain that, which probably I should have before sitting down to talk, but I just got back from this talk. So he was as open and gorgeous and wonderful as you would expect. He was a little fired up politically, which is fair. And I agreed with everything he said, so I found no issues with it. this is going to be an interesting read. I've read the first couple pages in line, and I'm just very excited to hear his voice. And I also think that they talked about his reasons for writing the book, which I think was very good, because when you see these kind of celebrity memoirs, you see celebrities become popular and all of a sudden there's a book. And he had very specific reasons for wanting to write this book. I'm not saying it's bad if you don't. Sometimes you just want that story from your favorite celebrity. But he's clearly thought this out, and he clearly has something to say. And I'm very excited to read what that is. I think that it will be very rewarding. That being said, if I wasn't going to this event, I would have done this book on audio. So if you don't have this book, you don't have, in the sense that you don't have a book event or you're not married to the print, he does read the audiobook, and I think that that will be very special. Again, he alluded multiple times to very heavy topics in this book, and if you need that kind of distance emotionally from someone that is very beloved, you might want to do the print if you don't want it to be that emotionally immediate, so to speak. So I've kind of babbled on again. I apologize, not for my enthusiasm, but for my lack of succinctness. What have you been reading? What have you loved? Have you read anything that I talked about today that you've loved? If you love Things We Lost in the Fire, tell me about it so that everyone will read it, because I don't think it got the attention it deserved. That was the same year that Her Body and Other Parties came out, which got tons of attention. That was totally deserved, but I don't feel like Things We Lost in the Fire got enough. So anyway, I will talk to you all soon, and have a great one.